simply an error in the system. Joining me now, North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer. Senator, great to have you this weekend. Well, there certainly are a lot of coincidences when it comes to social media and Donald Trump. Will Congress take action here?
Well, this has been an ongoing battle between particularly Republicans in Congress with Google, even relating to their Gmail. You know, we have noticed that Republican campaign emails to Gmail accounts don't get through as well as Democratic ones do. And so there's this cultural bias within the entire tech world largely. And I think it's hard to nail what it is exactly, but at the end of the day, it's people, whether it's the CEO of the company or the programmers or the enforcement folks. They just have this natural bias that doesn't even allow them to see their own bigotry. And so they're going to have to get a handle on it, or Congress could do something. And we're somewhat limited in remembering that we're the free marketers. We don't like to interfere in emerging and new technologies and advanced technologies, or certainly not in an investment sense. But when you accumulate as much power as Meta and Google, all the rest have accumulated, we have a moral obligation, frankly, to rein them in some way. I don't know what all can be done. There's always been their liability, security, if you will, that we could look at. There's regulation, I suppose we could look at. I hate going to that measure, but if you have to, you have to. You simply cannot be able to rig elections or rig news to advance one philosophy over another philosophy and maintain the credibility that Google and Meta and all the other technology companies think they ought to have.
Well, I mean, when you see that kind of power, I guess eyebrows go up, right?
They sure do. So here I am in North Dakota, the home of Theodore Roosevelt and the birthplace of populism in many cases. And so we as the middle of the North American continent have always been suspicious of concentrated power, to the point where our state government built its own mill and elevator, built its own bank, so that we weren't subject to the concentrated powers of places like Minneapolis. This is a part of the tradition of America to allow big, to celebrate big, to let people invest where they want to invest. But when you get so big and you have so much power, particularly over information distribution, something has to be done, and even in our free system.
Understood. Meanwhile, let me ask you about the Federal Reserve. It is also on a collision course with the presidential election. A rate cut in September, widely expected now, and it's expected to be half a point, 50 basis points, just 6 weeks before voters head to the ballot box. A potential move that already has critics calling it political bias, Senator. What do you think? If the Fed cuts rates by that sizable number in September, will people say the Fed is trying to help the Democrats?
Well, people will definitely say that, and I think Jay Powell, to his credit, is one of the most boring people in the world, and that's a good place to be if you're the Fed chair. I told him that recently. I defended Jay Powell a lot when Donald Trump was president, remembering that he was first nominated by Donald Trump, who wanted him to go lower in interest rates. I defended him publicly. I defended him in the Oval Office. But then, when we got to the pandemic, there are lots of headlines I could read about the Fed chair asking Congress to spend more money, build a revenue bridge, and spend even more money. And he was advocating fiscal policy until Joe Biden became president and had this very poorly named, $2 trillion American Rescue Plan, and followed up by a worse named Inflation Reduction Act plan, all of which was money just poured onto an already booming economy that created inflation. But he wouldn't say anything to Joe Biden about, you're going too far, Democrats, too much. We don't. In fact, he said, we are not in the business of giving Congress advice on fiscal policy. I'm like, well, you do until it benefits Democrats. Now they put themselves in this box.
I want to get your take on these backflips that Kamala seems to be doing this week, reversing her stance on fracking in an attempt to appeal to swing states like Ohio and Pennsylvania. She's denying it's a campaign flip, however, but we've got the tape, and of course, it tells a different story. Watch this.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. I have a history of working on this issue. And
I'm committed to passing a Green New Deal, creating clean jobs, and finally putting an end to fracking once and for all.
Joe Biden has said, quote, I am not banning fracking. Are you comfortable with Joe Biden's position?
Yes, because Joe is saying, listen, one, those are good paying jobs in places like Pennsylvania.
Which Harris will voters believe? Will that real Kamala Harris please stand up? What do you think, Senator?
Right. Well, the reason it's going to be impossible for voters to believe is, first of all, she was so adamant about it. No question, right? She was not ambiguous about this. The other thing is, Maria, and what's I think even clearer is that banning fossil energy production in the United States is as central to Democratic theology as the Last Supper is to Christianity. I mean, there is no way that anybody's going to believe that she's changed her mind on this. But she'll clarify it. If she wins, she'll clarify her opposition to fracking as soon as she wins the election. And I just think it smells too bad to be believable. But she also looks then weird and weak, flip-flopping all over the place on something that's so central to Democratic philosophy.
There's that word again, weird.
Yeah, well.
The Democrats are trying to say that the Republicans are weird. I don't know. I don't think it's really resonating very much, Senator.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It goes after their own base
weird?
if they keep saying that.
Exactly. Senator, good to see you, sir. Thanks very much for joining us this weekend.
It's great to be with you this weekend, and anytime, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Senator Kevin Cramer. Bad news is bad news for the markets as a much weaker jobs report fuels renewed fears of a recession.